The views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not those of radio station KICK, Vision Communications Incorporated, its management, or advertisers. Vision Communications Incorporated is not responsible for the validity or accuracy of information presented on this program.
Attention sports fans. Looking for the best in updates and interviews for your high school sports? Well, you found it. You're on board with the Scoreboard Guy.
Sports fans, and welcome to the Missouri Sports Network, carried by 92.3 KICK, Springfield, Missouri, and powered by Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks, Central Bank of the Ozarks, Dope Propane. And we're certainly glad you've tuned in. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. I'm going to take an opportunity here to visit with one. If you don't know this man, then you've not been around. Horner Askins, a long-time coach, administrator here in the area. Grew up in the area, I believe, but Horner is also the caretaker of the Springfield quarterback club that's been meeting for more than 5 decades, Horner. And you might kind of fill the folks in a little bit just kind of on the history of the Springfield quarterback club and some of the folks that have preceded you as caretakers.
I will do my best on that, Guy. Quarterback club and tip-off club pretty much began as one club, one treasury, and it's really not a club at all because it is open to the general public. But it has been a unique meeting place and luncheon for high school and college coaches in Springfield for, like you say, many, many decades. This started in 1950 with trying to improve the image and all of football in the city. And Bob Venata, not too long ago deceased, but Bob Venata lived well in his 90s, was friends to a lot of the people that carried on the quarterback and tip-off club. And when he started it, he was the coach, and I do mean in the old days, the coach at Central High School, which was called Senior High School. And starting football first with the club, he started that in 1950, as I said, and not sure where they met at first. There's been many meeting places down through the years, but it took to about, and I believe I'm right, 57 when they also included the basketball. And he was both football and basketball coach, head coach at Senior High School. Bob did this for several years, and then he moved throughout the nation at Division I schools and had very, very much success. That was after winning 2 small college championships for then SMS, of course, Missouri State. And that was in basketball. He became strictly really well known for his basketball coaching after he moved to the college level. This really caught on, and it caught on with the media around Springfield. And one of the notable names that really was still a major part of it when I came on the scene was in the 90s, literally after I retired, because I'd been a head track coach and a assistant football coach, plus later a cross country coach for, like you say, a lot of years. at Kickapoo High School. And so really I wasn't able to go. I think I went to one or two meetings while I was coaching because the head football coach and basketball coach took that time for these meetings. And of course, in those days, coaches taught a full schedule in the classroom, and it made it impossible for pretty much for us to be sent as assistants to the football program or those on the basketball program. So when I came into it was about 1996, and the leader then, pretty much the full leader, was Marty Edelman, a sports editor for the News and Leader and for the Springfield papers, and very well known around here, and a very, very good editor. And he did the announcing, introducing of coaches, and he was pretty outspoken and very knowledgeable in the world of sports. I was lucky enough, I didn't know what was going on, but now I'm glad it happened. As I came in, I didn't even know if this was going to fit me or not. And I only had to go to one meeting and meet guys like Gerald Jinks and several more that just put me really interested in what was going on. I was already interested enough in the sports, obviously. And I thought, wow, this is pretty neat. And Marty started sitting by me, and I didn't know exactly why, but he was getting ready to take over duty. And like I say, I'm glad he did. And so since 2004, I've been the somewhat leader of that. I've had a lot of help. And from you guys, there's several of you, and especially the younger ones have really bought in and helped a lot with the selecting of our awards. We do have, the unique part of it is college and high school coaches together. A lot of the college coaches have come in from far reaches of different parts of the country. And really, I think at first didn't think this was for them and wasn't sure that it was doing that much good. And then when they became friends, literally friends and close associates with the high school coaches and back and forth, suddenly it dawned on them that they were really having a leverage there in recruiting and other things by knowing how these coaches worked and becoming friends, as I said, with them. And it all just has really worked well in the later years here in the 2000s. And for the most part, we have anywhere on regular meeting days, we have from 40 to 50 people, including high school administrators, a few college administrators, many of the older athletic directors and what have you of the three major colleges here in Springfield, and the ones that do have athletic programs. And they have been all a big help. Now, I would like to say of where we've gone now, and of course, like everyone else in every walk of life, we have met obstacles over the last couple of years. So we were able to finish our seasons in the year before last. But then last year, we missed both quarterback and tip-off club because of COVID. And just the idea that Josh Scott, the school's athletic director here in Springfield Public Schools, and he made the right decisions. He didn't want to put any more pressure on his coaches of sending them to a meeting or something like this than they already had, of trying to keep their athletes together and their schedules and meet the obligations that they had to at school that was so pronounced. I have a daughter that's a teacher right now, and I know she's gone through more stress than at any time in her teaching career. And it's been real tough on everybody concerned. We hope, yes.
Go ahead. We're visiting with Horner Askins, a caretaker here of the Springfield Tip-Off Club and the Quarterback Club, talking a little bit about that history. And we also welcome to this episode another longtime area sports administrator, official, coach, going back to 1964, I think, Emory. Emory Gilday, and wanted to have an opportunity here to visit with you a little bit about the scheduling of the football games coming up this year, because I know you're kind of running short a little bit with officials because guys are retiring, so to speak, and just unable to kind of fill that in. But I know the schedule has changed a little bit with regards to what your responsibilities are through Misha as an assigner. Also, you've got the training going on, a longtime member of NFHS. But Emory, talk a little bit about the challenges that the officials are going to face this coming season.
Well, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Me too, Emory.
Horner. Of course, the pandemic last year, we suffered from that. We had an awful lot of games that got canceled. We had officials that got quarantined. And we hope we never have another season like we had last year. And we're not anticipating that this year will be that way, but we've still got some long range effects. We lost a lot of officials. We do every year. We always, we maintain here in 130 officials, and we lose usually a dozen to a dozen and a half each year. And then there's a lot of reasons. There's retirements. There's guys that because they have job or family situations change that they have to quit officiating or give it up. We've got guys laying out because they've got kids that are now playing and up in the high school and they want to watch them, which they should. We get a lot of the young ones that are college kids that start officiating while they're in college here, but then when they graduate, they leave the area. So we lose officials for any number of reasons. So it's a constant battle to continually keep our numbers up and do the recruiting. And we have a recruiting coordinator, and he's been a lot of, you've seen him on the media. He's been on all the talk shows, and we hope we're going to get about a dozen new ones this year. We've got a training program going on right now. And the month of August is the busy time for officials getting ready for the season with all our meetings and the state rules meetings that are required that I conduct in the area. And so we've got a lot going on with that. So it's just a constant battle to always to keep recruiting. There's about 65 football playing schools here in Southwest Missouri that we and our sister association over in Joplin, we've got 30 crews that pretty well take care of all those games. But occasionally we'll have a couple of extra games on a particular Friday that we have to try to cover. And in the past, we've had a surplus of what we call single officials that aren't in our crews that we could put together and work these games. Well, this year we didn't have them. So we had to ask some schools if they would voluntarily move some games to either Saturday or to Thursday, which some of them did. But it came down to that we had to have a drawing for 4 games, and those schools were told they had to move their game, which they did. And I anticipate we're going to have more of that. So we're hoping that maybe in the future, our schools will start playing maybe at least one of their home varsity games on a non-Friday, either a Saturday afternoon or evening or a Thursday. That will help. But I'm afraid with the number of games that we have, and schools are adding, some schools are starting football that haven't had it. And it just, it's a constant battle. And We fight it every year, but we manage to get, for the most part, we get the games played, and that's what's important for the kids.
And once again, we're visiting with Emory Dilday and Horner Askins. But Emory, as you look, are these schools that have moved their games, are you able to share, what I mean? I don't need specific dates, but maybe some of the schools that have went ahead and offered to move their games to Thursdays or Saturdays.
We had Lamar moved a game for us. Reed Springs moved a game. Forsyth, Neosho. And so we had, games like that. Now Springfield Public, they play a lot of their games on Thursday. Almost all 5 of the high schools will play a Thursday night game. They generally play their homecoming game on a Thursday so that the Friday can be for the homecoming dance and all they do. So they've been real good about that through the years. They've played some Thursday games, a lot of the intercity games. But out in the area, we haven't had too much of that. And when we have had them, they're always really popular games. When they play there's nothing better than a pretty fall afternoon and a football game. And so we've had some of that, and they seem to work out real well. So we're hoping that the schools will maybe start doing that on their own.
If you get enough of those to move, I know I've got one of our high school game days will be at Camdenton, where Marionville is going to play West Strand. They're going to meet at Camdenton
Correct.
On that Saturday, and looking forward to that too. Very good programs.
Right. Kind of meeting in the middle, so to speak. And we've had that in the past before. We've had some really good Saturday afternoon matchups in the past when schools will get together, because not only will it draw the fans from those 2 schools, but then fans from a lot of the other schools in that conference and stuff will come to that game. And so some of those Saturday afternoon games can really be exciting.
Before we get back to Horner and when the tip-off club is scheduled to start, are there any rule changes this year, coming up? I know that they've changed a lot of things here over the past several years, but what would be maybe a rule change, if any, that's going to occur this season here in the 2021 fall?
Well, this season was unique. I'm on the National Rules Committee, and generally we have about anywhere from 25 to 40 rule proposals, and usually there's about a dozen rule changes each year. This year there was 1 rule change, and it's more of a definition. It redefines something about blocking on the line of scrimmage. What defines the free blocking zone and blocking below the waist that's still allowed. And it really kind of redefined it. It really didn't change it much. That's the only rule change we had this year. So it's a pretty minor year. And the officials manual that the officials used as their guide, that's a 2-year publication. And this is a non-print year for that publication. So the high school officials aren't going to have to deal with a lot of rule changes this year. They're just 1.
Well, that's great. I've got a very good friend of mine and a sponsor, Grant Baker with Shelter Insurance there, that he's been officiating for several years, and got to visit with him at the lake. And, he kind of echoed a little bit about what you said. And of course, he puts a lot of time into it. I don't realize, or didn't realize, and don't know that people realize how much time these officials put into just preparing for a game, and then going back and they're as critical of themselves maybe as maybe some of the fans are during the game. But he's always working on that. So I know you guys put a lot of time into training, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do.
Appreciate that. They do put a lot of work in, a lot of stuff that the fans come to the game, and they see the officials walk out at so many minutes before kickoff, and that's the only thing they think about, and they don't realize all the rule study and the meetings and all the things that officials go through to get themselves prepared to work those games, to officiate them. So, and then they get their game films. All the schools use an outfit called Huddle for their games, and the officiating crew is able to get their game film from their game the night before or the week before, and they can study their film and look at things and look at plays they may have had questions about, or things that come up in the game that they want to look at, because you can't watch instant replay, out there when you're officiating. You've got to make the calls as you see them, and we don't have the instant replay on the high school level like they do in the NFL and in major colleges. So they can review their films after the fact, so to speak, and try to improve their officiating skills.
Well, outstanding. And Emory, thanks again. Thanks so much for joining us. And I really appreciate your insight. And hopefully we'll get to run into each other. You know, it seems like every time I go to a game, call a game, you'd be there.
I'm around.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks, Emory. And,
all right.
Horners, as we prepare now, as the officials now are starting to get their assignments or Thursdays, Saturdays, that the quarterback club still, as it has for, you know, since my involvement, me and my father have been attending here now since, I want to say 2010, maybe 2011, but a long time. Really, my father looks so much forward to this. And what are, and I know we can't really talk a lot about where, and but what are the plans now as far as launching? When do you plan on having that first that first quarterback club?
Well, Guy, you know, we're still up in the air and be a little vague with it, but at the same time, I think I can give you some information. We probably started seeing where we were at, of course, after we had missed last year, around the end of school in May. And we looked at the situations then of what the possibilities come back. And I know I talked to Josh Scott and then Marty Marsh, who was his assistant and now has moved on to another job. But Josh Scott has been wonderful to spend his time and to talk to me and to be positive about some things, but yet very realistic about some things, as he was last year. And with the beginning of this, I kind of came back to the situation in mid-July and started looking for places and situations. And when I went by Drury to see my associate there, Ed Beach, he had actually done a lot of work and a lot of research on some possible places. And part of this, of course, was with his job of finding meeting places and things for various meetings of Drury, but also he kept a very open mind to the fact that, well, this might work for quarterback and tip-off club. And so we come up with, I won't say multiple places because there wasn't 10 or 12, but there was 3 or 4 that we really had in mind and that looked promising. And Josh Scott called one place, and they shocked me because I knew there would probably be a price increase. And that's always a controversial thing with some of our regulars. And they know what they've paid all through the years and don't want to pay a whole lot more than that. But we have been able to keep the price, and you've got to realize that you're seeing 10 or 11 coaches, college and high school coaches in town speak about their teams and about situations.
I'm off this Zoom call by then.
And anyway, we came up and then I got a tip.
I'll be off this Zoom call.
Go ahead.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I got a tip of one particular place that I had always been pretty interested in and possibly being a good place. And that seemed to work out with a favorable price and a favorable menu and meeting place. And what it amounts to is, with the practice schedule starting for the public schools this week and all the Missouri high schools for football and various fall sports, Josh is going to be able to make some decisions and help us make some decisions on what they can do this year and can't do. And so early this week, I should be able to have an answer and figure out just where we're going to meet and when. Right now, I'm thinking about a few less meetings than we've had in each sport, maybe to 6 or 7, which we usually have as many as 10. And still have our awards day as we usually do. And for each sport, football would end in late October. Basketball would end, as far as our club meetings, in the last probably Monday in February. And so that would stay pretty much the same. I would like to be able to start, if possible, on the 30th of August, right after the first games are played, and high school games, and that blends in close enough with the colleges. And the big thing is we need a younger group coming in to, besides the media guys, we need our parents and boosters from each of the high schools and colleges to start being more present, because unfortunately, due to health and worse, the older group has dwindled down over the last year or two. And this year, I would hate to say how many probably won't be back to be able to take part in that. And we've lost some of them, and then some of them are in poor health. And some of them would probably be a little leery about going to a group luncheon. But we need the people out there that hear us and see us to come and find out what this is. That's what the coaches have done, and most of them have bought in big time when they see this unique situation Springfield has with the coaches' luncheon. Guy, that's about it. Next week, I can give you schedule and information if we have a go-ahead signal. And if not, I'll give you the information of the whys and wherefores of that.
All right. Well, Horner, I certainly appreciate you being part of the show. And Mr. Dilday, your microphone's actually muted, if you can unmute that. But I really appreciate you guys being on with us here, and looking forward to the next time we get to visit. But Mr. Askins, thank you so much. And Mr. Dilday, thank you so much for being part of the Missouri Sports Network.
Well, it was our pleasure. And I actually remember when Horner was a young coach back in the early days when he first came to Springfield.
Yes, indeed. Well, when you started in 1964, you're going to remember a lot of guys.
A lot of come and gone.
I've heard that story a time or two there, Emery. I'm proud of you, though. And Guy, thanks so much for letting me give that information about Quarterback Tip-Off Club.
All right, you guys bet. Thanks so much. You're listening to the Missouri Sports Network on KICK 92.3. Network here on KICK 92.3, KICK, home of the Royals, brought to you by Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks and the Missouri State Highway Patrol, who reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. We're certainly welcome to the Missouri Sports Network. The Nixa Lady Eagles volleyball coach, head coach, Annie Zimmerman. Coach Zimmerman, thanks for your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This Zoom meeting and YouTube has kind of become the norm, so to speak. And it's so far, it's worked out well. Been able to visit with a lot of different coaches from around the area. But as you head into this fall, also the new norm is the Lady Eagles going to the Final Four, 67-8. I think over the past 2 seasons, including a state championship, a runner-up finish. Talk about the last 2 seasons and what it's meant to Lady Eagle volleyball.
Well, it's been phenomenal. Obviously, when you have that many wins put together in a couple seasons, obviously I feel very blessed as a coach to be a part of that. And we've really enjoyed having some tremendous athletes come through our program, here the last few years. And, not just the 2019 or 2020 season. We've been blessed with great athletes for several years. And for whatever reason, the stars aligned in those seasons, and we made it to those championship games. So our hope and our goal is to get back again this season.
Give listeners an idea of how you ended up at Nixa. Where'd you cut your teeth at collegiately, and how long have you been there?
Oh gosh, so I actually did not play collegiately. I played in high school, and then I attended college at Missouri State University, which was at that time Southwest Missouri State University. It's been a few years ago. So when I was in college, I got the opportunity to start doing some coaching at the high school that I graduated from Seymour High School. And they had asked me to come back and be an assistant for not only volleyball, but basketball as well. So I actually started my coaching career pretty much right out of high school. And that guided me into, going ahead and majoring in physical education and deciding that, yep, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So that's kind of how I got my coaching career started. And, I was fortunate out of college. I got a teaching and coaching job there at Seymour and taught there for 5 years. From there, moved on to Mountain View Birch Tree Liberty High School, kind of there in Southeast Missouri, and enjoyed 4 great years there. I had some really successful teams coaching volleyball there. From there, went to Parkview High School in Springfield. Stephanie Bates had a lot to do with that move for me. She called me up and asked me if that's something that might interest me. And honestly, at the time, I wasn't looking to make a move, but it just so happened that things kind of worked out, and that move was made. So was at Parkview for 3 years, and then the Nixa job opened up, and I thought, well, I'm going to take a shot, put my name in there, see what happens. And a little bit to my surprise, I got the job, and just finished my 7th year there at Nixa. So couldn't be happier. Hope I get to stay there for a long, long time.
Well, I tell you what, you keep winning like you're winning. They'd be silly to move on from you. But Coach, over these past 2 seasons, what have you going into the 2021 season? What have you got to replace roster wise to kind of keep that truck rolling?
Actually this season, from our starting varsity lineup at the end of last year, I'm really replacing one middle blocker. We did lose 5 seniors from this last year's team. A few of them were more role players that had a DS. So as far as, that starting lineup, I'm really just replacing one key player, that middle hitter, Taylor Goldman, which is going to be starting her collegiate career here in just a few weeks at John Brown University down in Arkansas. So we're excited for her on that. But, this is the first time in a few years where, a lot of our pieces from the previous season are really coming back into place. So I don't expect there to be a lot of movement within positions. Most of our players are going to, continue playing the same position. We've just got to find that middle blocker piece, and who's going to be able to fill that role the best, and be able to go from there. So,
visiting with Annie Zimmerman, the head volleyball coach for the Nixa Lady Eagles. And Coach, what's the summer been like? I know last year, I've talked to football coaches and cross country coaches over the summer, and really everything was kind of shut down last summer, didn't have a lot of opportunities. And now, the football coaches and the fall sports coaches have been so grateful just to be busy, to have things on their schedule. What's the summer been like for the Lady Eagles?
Busy, which is good. That's the way we want it. We've had great opportunities to get in the gym and work together, and great opportunities to go play some other teams. We participated in some league games in the month of June, and then we go play some tournaments in the month of July. And we've fortunately been able to do all those things. Kind of this summer has resembled the most normal schedule that we've had, obviously, in a couple of years. So it was nice to kind of get back to that normalcy. We hope that we're able to continue. We've got fingers crossed that we are able to transition into the fall season and be able to do that pretty seamlessly. That's the hope and the goal. So my kids are just willing to do whatever it takes. They have to wear a mask, they'll wear a mask. It doesn't matter. We just want to be able to play and have our season. And we were so fortunate to get through last season. And we hope, like I said, that this season can somewhat return to kind of that normal. But again, we're willing to do whatever it takes to have that season.
Coach, what was maybe the biggest challenge you had last fall? Was it the not knowing if you could have been shut down at any time?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of those challenges that you faced that there are no books for? And it's not something you went to SMS. They didn't have a class on COVID-19 and how to deal with it. What were the biggest challenges?
Sure. I think early on for me was just the practice planning piece and trying to keep, trying to be productive in what we try to get done in our practices early in the season, and all the things that we want to put in and get done, and do that while keeping our players kind of in small pods or small groups. That way, if someone had to be quarantined, it didn't affect the entire team. So I think just from a planning perspective, that was a big challenge for me early on. We were kind of able to get in a groove, and that got a little easier as we went. But just always being mindful of who I'm putting where. And when you've got, I think I kept 34 kids on our roster last year, which was the most I've kept in a while. And just planning and accounting for where every single one of those players were at every single minute of practice was definitely, I think, for me, kind of the biggest challenge. But like I said, kind of once we got rolling, got into a little bit of a groove, it became a little easier as we went. Of course, it's really hard to prepare to not have a player, and that could happen at any time. So we really emphasized last year our kids being well-rounded players, because you never know, one of our outside hitters may have to go play right side, or may have to play in the middle a little bit where they're not used to. So we really tried to focus our practice time on letting them have opportunities to play all of those different positions, just so if we ever got in that situation, they would be a little more comfortable with it. As you go forward here into 2021, who are some players on your team that you kind of want to make folks aware of? Who should we be watching? And I know you've got a lot of returners, but who are some of the standout kids that maybe step up and maybe take a center stage this year? I think really my entire senior class has the capability of being that standout player. And then, of course, we have some underclassmen too that kind of really shined at the end of last year. But I'll go ahead and start with some of my seniors. We have Sydney Golden and JC Fixon, who are returning, and they were both all-state athletes last year as juniors. Both have committed to play at the collegiate level. So obviously we are looking for them to have big contributions to our team again this year, because they certainly did last year. We have Jenna Medeiros, who was one of our starting middles last year, who's returning. That, kind of early on in the season last year, I wouldn't say she struggled, but I think making that transition into varsity level volleyball, it took a little bit of time for her. And by mid to late season, she really blossomed and was really doing some phenomenal things for us and making some very big contributions. So to have her back in the middle with that now experience, I think she'll do fantastic for us this season. We also have one of our DSs, Addison Twy, which is a phenomenal athlete, super high energy. So she'll be in our backcourt again and helping kind of lead our defense. And like I said, she just brings great energy to our court. So I think she's even though she's on the floor for 3 rotations and then goes off, I think just her presence anywhere with our team makes a huge difference for us. And then we have Allie Billmeyer, who as a junior last year was one of our starting outsides, competed for that spot early on against 1 or 2 other seniors and actually won the spot. And by mid to late season, again, we're making those really big contributions for us. So I think all 5 of those players will be very key in us having success early in the season. And I want them to have that growth mindset. I don't want them to be satisfied with where they're at, with where we were at as a team at the end of last season. I want that growth to continue. And I think they want that as well. I think they're hungry to prove that there's still more there, that they can be better. So I look for them to be great leaders for our team overall this season.
Here we are, mid-July, August 9th is the start of fall practices. What do the Eagles have in store between now and that first practice, and then you head into that jamboree, I believe, at Kickapoo?
Yes, yeah, we're in the Kickapoo in the jamboree at Kickapoo, which is a really competitive one. It's us, Kickapoo, Ozark, and Carl Junction. So great teams that we get to play against there early on. So that's always good to kind of see where you're at. But from now, we only have next week is our last week of being in the gym and working on some things until we go into our dead week, which starts on July 31st. So we technically have 4 more days that we'll be together. And something that we did today and we talked about after the last tournament we played in last week is we just kind of need to get back to basics a little bit. I think all of our kids have played a lot of volleyball between club and school. We played games. You play games, lots of games, and that's good. But I feel like some of our fundamental skills have kind of started to get maybe a little bit sloppy. So we need to start fine tuning those again. And so that was our focus today in our skills session. And I felt really good walking out of the gym. I felt like we had accomplished a lot of good things. And I think the kids did too. So that'll be our focus again next week. Our varsity will finish out our summer program next Friday. We travel to Lafayette to compete in a tournament up there. So we'll see how well these skill days have kind of worked for us and see if it looks a little bit better that last day of July there that we'll be together. And then obviously they get to take some time off, rest. They need to rest a little bit. And, usually that dead week, all it does is get them really excited for that first day of practice. And that's how I want them coming in. I want them to be excited to be there and ready to hit the ground running.
You bet. Coach Zimmerman, as always, I certainly appreciate you being generous with your time here. And it's been very informative. I didn't realize you had that many coming back off of that team. If you look over my right shoulder, you can see the state championship picture here in the new studio. And but it's been great to catch up with you. And best of luck. And hopefully we'll get to visit throughout the season.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Next to the Lady Eagles volleyball coach, Annie Zimmerman, and we'll be back after this. One of the greatest athletes in Missouri sports history here in Southwest Missouri is a 2-time Missouri State champion wrestler,
state champion in football as well, and the Defensive Player of the Year back in 2011. And you know him well, Joe Zimmer. Joe, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to get to chat with you for a little.
Coach Morgan Scott, formerly known as Morgan I, maybe more known by that name as a high school and collegiate player. But Coach Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Webb City Lady Cardinal, Drake Lady Bulldog, and Nebraska Lady Cornhusker, Kendall Clark. Kendall, hey, thanks so much for the time this morning.
No, I'm excited. Thank you.
January the 18th of 1998 in the Tournament of Champions, and Teddy Dupay and Scott Breakbill are along with head coach for the Bolivar Liberators, Darren Archer. And Teddy, first off, hey, thanks for being part of the show today.
Oh, sure thing. This is cool. I'm glad you guys asked me to jump on.
And Scott Breakbill, you as well, and you are quarantined there, in your pickup right now.
Yep, this is my home for a few weeks, I guess, working out of the truck. But thanks for having me on as well. It's always good to rehash some good memories.
Yeah, Coach Archer alongside here, and we're maintaining as much social distancing as we can. But Darren, thanks for coming by today.
You bet, my pleasure.
This has been a production of the Missouri Sports Network in conjunction with the Scoreboard Guy. If you'd like to hear more about this or keep up with more sports, check out MissouriSportsNetwork.com, ScoreboardGuy.net, or Alan Hilliard Sports. We will be here every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. on KICK. Also be sure to share this with your friends and follow our social media at Missouri Sports Network on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, I believe. We will see you next week.